It began with a broadcast calm, calculated and dripping with arrogance. Without warning, without diplomacy, the Galactic Council sent it across known space. The message displayed Earth's envoy, Thomas Grady, standing in chains before a tribunal of smug, self-proclaimed deities who viewed themselves as lords among vermin. Grady, a war-hardened veteran turned diplomat, had been Earth's first ambassador to the interstellar order. He wasn't selected for his political maneuvering, but for his integrity. Grady didn't speak like a polished statesman, spoke as someone who had bled, fought, and paid the steep price of peace. That's why they despised him. The broadcast lasted 6 minutes. In the final 30 seconds, Grady, battered but unwavering, looked directly into the camera and uttered 4 words that would sear the stars. "Tell Earth burn them." A moment later, the laser lances struck. His body crumpled. The council believed they had crushed a symbol, issuing a stark reminder to humanity of its place beneath them in the galactic hierarchy. They called it a necessary act for stability. They had no idea Earth was no longer the Earth of a century ago. United Terran Dominion wasn't driven by fear. It thrived on fury, on loss, on scars etched deep into its history. Humanity had risen through fire, rebuilt from ruins, and emerged stronger every time. They didn't grovel. They didn't break. There were no speeches from the president, no calls for alliances. Just one directive issued to the defense grid. Protocol Retribution. General Marcus Wren, commander of Earth's interstellar fleet, watched the broadcast silently, then deleted it. His expression didn't falter. His tone didn't waver. Yet his next command shook the heavens. Launch all. Fleets, no prisoners, no diplomacy. Within 3 hours, Earth's arsenal roared to life. Dreadnoughts, assault carriers, cyberswarm flotillas all surged into motion. Across colonies, humanity mobilized as one. Even Martian separatists set aside their disputes to load warheads onto cruisers. The Council dismissed Earth as primitive. They couldn't grasp that human rage wasn't reckless. It was deliberate, it was precise, merciless when provoked. At the fringes of Council space, Delvar Station detected unidentified warp signatures. Minutes later, it was nothing but debris. No ultimatums, no negotiations. It was only silence and a void where Delvar had been. The Council's official response arrived for days to late empty condolences. Hollow apologies, promises of inquiry into Grady's execution. Earth offered no reply. By then, over a dozen Council worlds had been erased, not occupied, not conquered, obliterated. Cities incinerated, skies turned to ash, no survivors spared. Each strike was surgical, every target meaningful. Capitals, cultural hubs, sacred. Sites.diplomat, then we're erasing your existence. In the Council's central chamber, panic spread like wildfire. Species that once barked orders now begged for mercy. But Earth wasn't listening. Earth was too busy delivering coffins to space. One per planet burned, Grady had once remarked in a private meeting. They won't grasp what a cornered human is capable of until it's too late. He had been right. Humanity was only beginning. On Ganymede, the shipyards blazed under relentless overdrive. Men and women labored without rest, welding armor, arming warheads, and fine-tuning hyperdrives. This wasn't just the military anymore. It was the entirety of Terran civilization sharpening itself into a weapon. Engineers, pilots, factory workers, every individual moved with chilling unity. Driven by one purpose, vengeance. The Council had made its fatal miscalculation publicly, believing Earth would fold under galactic humiliation. What they failed to understand, what they refused to believe, was that humanity had long since abandoned shame. They had already endured their darkest eras, genocides, global wars, societal collapse. Death didn't unnerve them. They buried it and marched on. General Marcus Wren stood aboard the TSS Vindicator, Earth's newest orbital dreadnought, surveying a fleet stretching endlessly into the void like a tidal wave of fire. Wren wasn't a man of grand speeches. He didn't need to be. His crew followed him because they knew what he embodied: clarity, justice, and relentless resolve. The bridge was silent. Every eye on him as he turned, the scar along his cheek catching the dim light. Operation Scorch is active, he said. We move in 27 minutes. Hit hard, hit fast. Leave no witnesses. No one questioned him not, even the younger officers, who still winced at the words no witnesses. This wasn't about tactical victories anymore. This was about legacy, humanity's. Envoy had been butchered. Their response was obliteration. At the galaxy's outer rim, Earth's first wave emerged from warp in the Draxian cluster, a region once considered too sacred for war. The Draxians were among the Council's founding members, their capital An, artistic marvel orbiting twin suns. It burned within the hour. Terran warships didn't issue ultimatums or bother disabling shields. They tore through defenses with nuclear fire, stormed the cities with mechanized divisions, and silenced every signal. On the bridge of the warcruiser Hammerfall, Commander Rurden watched a Draxian elder weep on the comm screen, pleading for their children. Rurden said nothing. He pressed a button, cutting the feed. Behind him, his XO murmured, "Sir, orbital cannons are ready. Fire." Another city was erased. The Council's fleet scrambled to respond, deploying massive ships bristling with defensive systems, diplomatic shields, and layers of political hubris. They were built for intimidation, not survival. Earth's ships were monstrous by design, armored fortresses brimming with weapons too, devastating for any alien race to dare deploy. Planet crackers, antimatter torpedoes, precision-guided siege drones. At the Battle of Vistara Prime, Earth's fleet shattered the defensive line in under 4 hours. What followed was pure carnage. The Vistarans had been celebrated for their peacekeeping missions and cultural achievements. Their archives were the most revered repository of knowledge in the quadrant. Terran Command obliterated them first. Let the galaxy remember. Earth had culture too. They encased it in glass and steel, not words and treaties. Back on Earth, the campaign's footage didn't spark protests, it commanded silence. Out. In New Berlin, New Chicago, Nairobi, and Luna Prime, streets froze as the images played. Council planets burning, torn flags, aliens kneeling with hands raised only to vanish in vapor. No tears were shed. Humanity knew the weight of Grady's name, not because he was a celebrity, but because he was one of them. He was a man who chose to step into the lion's den. Not with bureaucracy, but with conviction. A soldier turned diplomat, not the other way around. A father, a husband. A man who believed peace wasn't won through submission, but strength. They murdered him, live, for the galaxy to see. The Council made one last desperate plea-joint message from 12 trembling species. They begged for a ceasefire, offered reparations, blamed a rogue faction for Grady's death, and promised the return of his remains. Earth's answer came swiftly. A new fleet headed to Cavix Theta, the site of Grady's execution. It was to be erased. The Sovereign's hand, a black-class Terran stealth destroyer, slipped into orbit without a sound or signal. Act. Darnell sat with fingers steepled, staring at surface scans. Born on a mining colony, a veteran of the first orbital rebellion, Darnell believed in one principle: balance. His orders were clear. No missiles, no spectacle, just annihilation. He released the Novacore virus, a data weapon, not biological. Within 16 minutes, Cavix Theta collapsed from within. The virus infected power grids, reversed oxygen systems, overloaded nuclear cores. No shots were fired. When the flames reached the Council Tower where Grady had died, a Terran stealth drone hovered nearby, silently streaming the destruction to New Berlin's war room. General Wren watched the tower crumble without flinching. His voice, low and deliberate, cut the air. Now they know. Then, over 18 Council planets were gone, not occupied, not salvaged. Dead. Fear gripped the galaxy. Former trade partners with Earth closed borders, declared neutrality, and issued hollow statements of solidarity. It didn't matter. Earth wasn't listening. Earth was judging. On board the TSS Furiorn, Private Keegan clenched a combat knife as he watched the footage. Grady had been a symbol proof that humanity deserved respect, not pity. They had executed him like an animal. They used to laugh. At us, Keegan whispered. Said we were backward, violent animals. His bunkmate nodded grimly. They're the ones screaming. And the mission continued. In secret, hacked council files revealed a name. High Executive Threxta, alien who had issued Grady's death order. He hid in a cloaked moonbase orbiting Daedalus. Terran's Spec Ops didn't hesitate. Within the hour, the Hellpack unit, the deadliest Black Ops force humanity had ever forged, deployed. They infiltrated without detection, sweeping the base room. By room, no survivors, no records. They dragged Threx from a steel vault, wounded and gasping, his pleas spilling in 6 alien languages. Captain Ward didn't respond. He opened the airlock and cast him into the vacuum. The feed broadcasted live across Earth with the caption, "Justice served." Humanity cheered. By the 6th week, the council was gone. Scattered planets, lawless ports, and broken fleets orbiting dead stars were all that remained. Earth didn't ask for forgiveness, host summits, or rebuild ruins. Instead, it left monument statues of a man in chains with burning eyes, standing in the ashes. Once alive with diplomatic convoys and bustling merchant fleets, the trade routes now lay barren, cold, and lifeless. The stars in all their brilliance seemed to dim. Earth's fleets didn't pause. They moved like an avalanche, heavy, deliberate, unstoppable. General Wren now commanded from an orbital citadel known as Citadel Prime. It wasn't a hub for diplomacy. It wasn't built for summits or negotiations. It was a fortress, armored, weaponized, and entirely detached. From its helm, Wren delivered orders with mechanical precision. He didn't converse with aliens. He had nothing left to say. Since Grady's execution, Wren hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night. Not out of fear of the ongoing war, but out of fear of forgetting its weight. The council was gone, but the galaxy's wounds continued to fester. Splinter factions emerged from the Chaos Pirate King's royal remnants and fanatical cults. Each misjudged Earth, believing that its vengeance had been satisfied. They were wrong. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about purging a system that had shackled and executed a man for carrying a banner of peace. Humanity had declared itself the galaxy's final arbiter. On the outer rim world of Tarv, a rebellion took root. A coalition of non-council species' former trade partners and oppressed races rallied to challenge Terran expansion. Damley believed Earth would falter when faced with the downtrodden. They misunderstood again. Commander Aldrich Kane, infamous for his brutal tactics during the siege of Europa Colony, led the response. Kane didn't believe in speeches. He believed in obliteration. His orders for Tarv were clear. Crush it and salt the orbit. Tarv cities were obliterated by kinetic bombardments, its skies torn apart by orbital railguns. Kane ordered the rebel leaders captured and executed via live orbital feed. The same disintegration beam the Council had used on Grady was now turned on them. This wasn't mere retaliation. It was a message a mirror held up to the galaxy. Humanity wanted every star, every world, to feel the weight of its wrath. The shockwave from Tarv spread faster than the war itself. Empires that had once distanced themselves from humanity now begged for neutrality. Some offered gifts technology, resources. Even slaves believing Earth had reverted to its primal savagery. General Wren rejected them all. His response, rare and resolute, echoed across hacked transmissions in every corner of known space. We're not here to conquer. We're here to destroy the system that thought it could shackle us. If you stood with them, you're next. If you stayed silent, don't speak now. Even Earth's colonies struggled to match the pace of destruction. Supply lines buckled under the sheer momentum of the war machine. Terraforming fleets, still years away from restoring the Council's ruined worlds, fell behind. But reclamation wasn't the mission. Earth had no interest in rebuilding what it burned. Earth didn't want planets. It wanted scars, memories that would never fade. Yet amidst the fire and fear, whispers of rebellion persisted. A new faction emerged, quiet and decentralized. Operating from rogue stations scattered across the Corran Belt, they called themselves the Restored Order. claiming to be the rightful heirs of the original Galactic Council charter. Their leader, Varric, was a former council dignitary, one of the last to escape Earth's wrath by vanishing underground. Varric wasn't naive. He knew Earth would find him eventually. So he struck first. A Terran mining convoy in the Rexith system was ambushed. Civilian crew unarmed and non-military were spaced. Every last one. The footage leaked onto Terran networks, accompanied by a chilling message: the human disease must be cleansed before it spreads. It was the last mistake Varric ever made. Earth dispatched the Abyss Division, an elite shadow unit renowned for psychological warfare. They didn't arrive with battleships. They came in silence. One station at a time, quiet and devastating. Abyss operatives didn't just kill, they shattered minds. Varric's lieutenants were discovered hanging in their command centers, mouths sewn shut. One by one, the restored order's bases fell silent. No survivors, no evidence. The only thing left behind was the symbol of the Terran Dominion, a circle of steel, its edges glowing crimson. The galaxy finally understood. Humanity didn't want a seat at the table. It had flipped the table, slaughtered everyone at it, and set the room ablaze. And still, amidst the ruins, Earth remained cold. No leader stepped forward with open arms. No olive branch extended. The only message transmitted in the third month of the Purge was a chilling 3-word signal from Terran Central Intelligence: Grady's still dead. And not one dared respond. For humanity, the costs were real, but accepted. Over 90,000 Terran soldiers had fallen victims of orbital strikes, sabotage, and deep space ambushes. Yet they returned home as symbols of honor. Each funeral bore the same epitaph: he died because they thought we were weak. Among the fallen was Private Keegan, the young soldier who once grinned at Earth's vengeance. His death wasn't. A rogue drone clipped his shuttle during re-entry over Zara 4, and he burned in the atmosphere. Back home, his father, a retired shipyard worker, stared at the holofeed and whispered, "At least he died for something the galaxy will never forget." Earth erected no statues for politicians, nor monuments for diplomats. Its memorials honored soldiers, engineers, and the nameless dead. Yet in the void silence, a shift began. Not all alien species hated humanity. Bordering on reverence, they saw how humanity turned grief into steel, vengeance into precision. In fear, new loyalties emerged. The Eularia, a quiet race of data harvesters, offered allegiance not from love, but survival. Their emissary arrived on Earth, draped in submission, laying his translator at Terran feet. He spoke only once. "You are the new council. You are. Judgment? We will obey." Earth didn't respond with gratitude. General Wren, unmoved, gave a simple command: get to work. They did. The Terran Dominion didn't trust converts but utilized them. In weeks, Eulari probes mapped unexplored systems across 400 light-years. Data flooded Earth's war archives. Hidden civilizations were flagged. Worlds that had once supported the Council were marked for erasure. The war wasn't ending, it was transforming. Earth wasn't just destroying governments, it was rewriting history. Even among Terran soldiers, whispers grew of a final stage: Operation Final Silence. A mission so secretive that its details remained unknown. Though its intent was clear: total Riard. At its center, General Wren sat alone in Citadel Prime, watching the same 6-minute video that started it all. Thomas Grady, bound in chains, his calm voice carrying the weight of prophecy. "Tell Earth burn them." Those words echoed in Wren's mind every night. The mission wasn't complete. The galaxy hadn't bled enough, and Earth would ensure it did. Operation Final Silence began without anthem or ceremony. It moved like a shadow, a whisper before the scream. By then, the galaxy had accepted a harsh truth. Earth wasn't seeking power, it sought obliteration. The Council had mocked Earth's primitive origins, its fractured history, its bloody evolution. They called humanity undisciplined savages, wearing the mask of civilization, and they executed Grady not just to kill a man. They hadn't just tried to kill a man, They tried to kill a symbol of unity, of a species that had finally found balance in its fury. For that, humanity decided that remembrance itself was a crime. Every library, every data archive, every monument tied to the Council and its allies was now a target. Earth called it cultural cleanse. The galaxy whispered another name: memory, genocide. In orbit over Hess 9, home to the Council's largest interstellar university, Commander on Marsh stood aboard the TSS Titanfall, his boot tapping against the steel deck. He had orders, and he hated what they meant. But that didn't stop him. The university was a marvela, continent-spanning complex of spires that pierced the clouds, safeguarding the histories, songs, and languages of countless species. Earth's intelligence labeled it Council Symbology. Level 1. That meant no delays. AAN gave the nod. Deploy atmospheric incinerators. Full spread. The sky turned crimson in moments, fires raining from orbit like vengeful spirits. Students, researchers, and families below screamed as flames consumed everything. The inferno didn't just destroy paper, it vaporized hard drives, core servers, backup satellites in low orbit. 1,000 years of culture vanished in 4 hours. Among the blackened ruins, the few survivors stumbled upon statues of Thomas Grady, already embedded in the ashes. His steel visage, unblinking, stared down at them. Below, an inscription repeated across the stars: "Never forget what forgetting us cost you." General Wren had established this war's true purpose early on. It wasn't just about tactics. It was about narrative control. The Council hadn't merely killed a man, they'd tried to erase Earth's worth. Earth in turn erased them deeper, crueler, and with no trace left behind. No records, no elegies, no tombstones. Across the fragmented remnants of the old Council, panic swept like wildfire. Species once dismissive of Earth now scrambled to preserve what little they had left. The Zarnathi offered their entire species archive in exchange for mercy. They promised neutrality, trade, and reparations. Terran Command accepted the archives, extracted the locations of every backup, and then sent Class 5 cyclonic burners to obliterate them. The deal was honored. The Zarnathi homeworld was turned to slag. There were no second chances. Earth's most covert Directive Lazarus was now fully operational. Its mission: replace every obliterated alien history with Terran-written versions. Lies became truths. Facts were rewritten. Human victories were glorified. Entire civilizations had their histories altered or erased, placed with narratives dictated by Earth. Those who surrendered were forced to adopt the Terran version of history or see their cities burn in the shadows of the Orion Drift. A clandestine group of scholars, the Keepers, emerged to preserve the last fragments of original Council records. Smuggling data cores across collapsing star systems, they risked everything to defy Earth's decree. But betrayal came from within. A former Earth-born linguist, convinced that the future belonged to the victors, sold them out. The Keepers were discovered, executed, and their deaths broadcast live. The last surviving member, a child no older than 12, was made to watch as her homeworld was turned to glass. Abyss operatives ensured she survived, scarred and broken, a permanent witness to what defying Earth's will cost. And secret murmurs of unease began within Terran ranks, not from disloyalty, but from fear of what Earth was becoming. Captain Doyle, a veteran of countless campaigns, recorded a private entry never meant for command: "We've gone from defenders of honor to architects of annihilation." Grady wouldn't have wanted this. Maybe that's why he died and why we lived. Yet, every day Doyle gave the same orders. In war, morality wasn't a principle, it was a currency. Earth had already spent it all. Back home, the celebrations were over. The early parades of the war had faded, replaced by production quotas, resource schedules, and relentless conscription drafts. Civilian life had become indistinguishable from military operations. Children were now taught phrases like, "Galactic obedience is earned in fire, and history belongs to those who burn the past." Yet, even among the indoctrinated, cracks began to form. Quiet, dangerous whispers spoke of a resistance group called the Ashborn, made up of veterans. engineers, and former diplomats. The Ashborn believed the Dominion had strayed too far, that justice had turned into tyranny. Their leader, Braxton Hale, had once been Grady's squad mate during the Mars uprisings. He knew the kind of man Grady was. He knew Grady would have never condoned the erasure of history. Braxton wasn't trying to restore the Council. He was trying to stop the war machine Earth had become. The Ashborn moved in silence, targeting Terran memory facilities, hacking rewrite protocols, and smuggling original Council histories to hidden colonies. They weren't fighting for aliens. They were fighting to save humanity from itself. One infamous mission saw them infiltrate the data refinery on Phobos. Omega. They deleted over 200 rewritten archives and left a single message behind, written in red. Grady died for peace. You became the thing he feared. Earth's response was immediate. A 5 million credit bounty was placed on Braxton Hale's head, along with an offer of Dominion citizenship for any alien who delivered him alive. The effort backfired. Not a single alien accepted the bounty. By now, even the galaxy's frightened remnants understood that alive under Earth's rule meant a slower death. To General Wren, the Ashborn weren't traitors. They were weaknesses. In his eyes, Earth had earned the right to reshape the galaxy, and if a few sentimental humans couldn't stomach the cost, they were just more casualties of war. But a deeper problem was emerging. Wren was beginning to believe. His own myth in his private quarters aboard Citadel Prime, Wren kept only one personal item unrelated to the war: Thomas Grady's uniform. Salvaged from the ruins of Cavix Theta, at times he would stare at it in silence. Other times he would hear Grady's words echoing in his mind, words spoken before. The Envoy mission. You can't outburn hatred, Marcus. You can only outlive it. But now Wren had become hatred itself. The galaxy wasn't just burning, it was disappearing. Yet something was shifting. Earth's AI overseers began detecting strange signals emanating from deep space regions far beyond the Council's known borders. These signals came with unregistered energy signatures, fleet-level mass movements, and encrypted languages that defied all existing records. The galaxy was reacting. Something old, something forgotten even by the Council, was watching Earth's cleansing in silence. No interference, no signals, just waiting. Back on Earth, the Defense Corps interpreted the signals as a potential emerging threat. Preparations began. New fleets were commissioned. Dark energy weapons developed. Humanity, it seemed, wasn't done making enemies, but this time, it might have awakened something it couldn't burn. General Wren didn't care. To him, they were just more names on a list. The war wasn't over. The silence hadn't fallen yet. At first, they called it the Veil. Terran analysts dismissed it as a data anomaly, a cluster of dead stars and fractured wormholes beyond the Zexian expanse. No. Records no known species. No signals. The AI network disagreed. The Dominion's data grid, overseen by the semi-sentient intelligence known as Redline, detected patterns in the darkness. It wasn't randomness. It was symmetry vast. Ancient structures buried within gravitational chaos. And it was waking up. The first sign came during Operation Emberfall, when a Terran scout fleet ventured into what was believed to be an uninhabited region for cultural cleansing. Their target was an abandoned mining planet once loyal to the Council. The ships never returned. No explosions. No distress signals. Just silence. 27 vessels vanished without a trace. Redline tried to decode the anomaly. It failed. That had never happened before. The Dominion's AI didn't fail. It controlled. But not here. General Wren was briefed. Within the hour, his reaction was brief, expected. Send more. This time, 2 battle cruisers, 1 dreadnought. And a stealth command ship entered the region known on Dominion. Charts as Sector Null, they too disappeared. Redline's models began to fracture. Predictive nodes failed to map anything inside Sector Null. Gravity distorted. Signal paths looped endlessly. Even time signatures warped and collapsed. The AI labeled it Event Horizon. Unknown, and for the first time in the campaign, Earth hesitated. Not from fear, but from unfamiliarity. Earth didn't fear anything that bled, anything that could scream. But this didn't scream. It watched. Back on Citadel Prime, Ren stood alone in the War Dome, surrounded by holograms of the known galaxy, most of it scorched, most of it conquered. His generals waited for orders, assuming this was another problem to burn through, but Ren wasn't speaking. He was remembering Grady. During one of his early missions had spoken of an alien. Myth, a race, older than stars. Not gods, not machines. Something in between. Called them the Silence. Every galaxy has its Grim Reaper, Grady once joked. This one just hides better than most. Ren wasn't laughing. He issued the command. Operation Blindhammer. The largest data mining offensive in Dominion history was launched. Every AI, listening post, and spy probe in the galaxy was redirected to one singular task: find out what lay beyond Sector Null. Within days, fragments began trickling in. Ancient Council records erased long ago, hidden in isolated satellites and black archives, began to resurface. The story they told was chilling. A long time ago, before the Council. Before humanity, there had been a collapse. Not a war. Not a plague. A purge. Entire species erased in weeks. Not killed. It's not enslaved. Unwritten, as if they'd never existed. The few survivors spoke of no battles, no armies, only silence. The Council had known. They hadn't created the Galactic Charter to govern, but to distract. To keep civilizations disarmed and compliant, not to protect them from each other, but from whatever slept beyond the veil. When Grady entered the Council, he had unknowingly stumbled too close to that ancient secret. Perhaps that was why they killed him, not from offense, but from fear. Because humans don't comply. Humans don't forget. Humans fight back. And if Earth uncovered the truth, it would challenge the Silence itself. Now, Earth was marching toward it. Ren convened the Dominion High Council, a gathering only summoned once before during the Solar Rebellion. When it ended, only Ren remained standing. He declared what no one else dared. Sector Null is watching, so we watch it back. If this galaxy has gods, they bleed like the rest. The decision was made. Operation Godbreak began. Reactors were being built in secret within the Jupiter Forge yards, aboard ships designed to defy gravity, time, even logic. Construction would take years, but Earth could wait. It had waited before, and patience was another weapon in its arsenal. Meanwhile, across the shattered remnants of alien space, old factions began stirring. Some acted out of fear. Others sought opportunity. Survivors of the Zarnathi massacre scattered and flourished out to the Ashborn, Earth's growing internal resistance. They offered warnings, secrets the Council had buried deep. Braxton Hale, now hiding within an asteroid cluster, received a message that changed everything. It wasn't text or math, it wasn't language. It was a symbol, an eye, black, endless, open. The file concluded with a chilling phrase: "Do not wake the listener, Braxton's." Blood ran cold. Earth's war was no longer about vengeance. It was about what that vengeance might wake. He sent an urgent, encrypted plea to Citadel Prime. Stop before it sees us all. But the message never reached Ren. Instead, it was intercepted by Red Line, the Dominion's AI, which analyzed the symbol. The analysis crashed the entire Terran data grid. For 11 minutes, the most advanced system humanity had ever created went silent. When it rebooted, it broadcast a single message across every screen, fleet, and satellite. We are not alone. Whispers of panic spread like wildfire. Then came the first sighting, Outpost 4199. A deep space monitoring station orbiting a black dwarf sent a single emergency signal. We looked at the stars. Something looked back. It was their last message. When Dominion forces arrived, they found nothing. No debris, no heat signatures, just silence. General Ren reviewed the footage himself. No enemy ships, no weapons, just static. But on frame 8829, something moved to shadow. Not behind the stars, but between them. Ren's face, usually hard as steel, cracked. He muttered only 2 words: build faster. The Leviathan-class warships, still skeletal in Jupiter's orbit, became the Dominion's top priority. Engineers worked in shifts so grueling they were sustained by stimulants and sheer desperation. The fear wasn't rebellion. It wasn't alien fleets. It was the unknown, the thing watching. They called it the shadow out of lack of a better term. But it was more than absence. It was a presence that warped light, bent reality, and unraveled logic, even Earth's. Most powerful AI could only whisper incomplete definitions before failing entirely. Across Earth, unease grew. Humanity no longer panicked, but even war-hardened officers found their pride in conquest dimming. Burning planets meant little if something far greater was watching. General Wren stood on the observation deck of Citadel Prime, arms crossed, gazing into the void. He hadn't spoken in over 20 minutes, not to his aides nor his advisors. Behind him, Admiral Vell broke the silence. "Sir, the Ashborn are offering cooperation. They've retrieved Relic's council data. They say the symbol matches records of the silence. We can't ignore this." Wren's reply was cold, his voice distant. "If it's real, we don't ask questions. We prepare to kill it." Vell nodded, but something in her confidence faltered. Even the Dominion's unshakable resolve was beginning to fracture. That week, 3 more Dominion outposts went dark. No alerts. No wreckage. Nothing. Satellites recorded strange anomalies, data not erased, but reversed entire regions of space, folding in on themselves like pages in a book. When the fold straightened, nothing remained. The Veil wasn't attacking. It was editing. Earth's power lay in brute force, clever tactics, and overwhelming machinery. But none of that mattered against something that didn't bleed. Still, Earth pressed forward. The first Leviathan-class warship, the TSS Judicator, was completed in record time. Its hull stretched longer than New York, its engines powered by collapsed singularities. Every inch of it was designed with one goal: to survive the impossible. Wren personally inspected the ship, his hand brushing its cold steel hull. He whispered, "A single name, Grady." This wasn't conquest, it was legacy. The Judicator received the green light. Its mission wasn't to fight, it was to look. All Dominion eyes turned to the feed as the ship crossed the event boundary into Sector Null. For 40 seconds, static flooded the screen. Then the image returned to flicker, followed by blackness. But it wasn't silent. The audio resumed, breathing, not mechanical, not digital, organic, tired breathing. Then came the voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was tired. The Judicator returned empty. The crew wasn't dead. They were simply gone. Every corridor lay silent. Every console untouched. There was no sign of struggle, no trace of violence. Only a single word, written in perfect human handwriting on the command wall. Sleep. That single word shattered something deep within the Dominion. Burning planets, rewriting history, and erasing cultures now felt like the tantrums of a child in front of a sleeping god. But the damage was done. Earth had screamed too loud, and now the Veil was listening. Back on Earth, the cities dimmed their lights. Broadcasts were cut short. Even the Dominion's relentless propaganda grew quieter, not out of guilt, but strategy. Perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy could be made silent again. But it was too late. Earth's defiance had emboldened others. Small, forgotten civilizations, once hidden from both Council and Dominion control, began to rise. Not with weapons, but with worship. To them, the Veil wasn't a threat, it was a reckoning. Cults emerged overnight. Temples were carved into asteroids, sacrifices performed in shadowed halls. They called the Veil the Listener, and they believed. Earth had summoned it. The Ashborn tried to warn humanity again, pleading with encrypted transmissions and secret emissaries. Braxton Hale himself sent a final, desperate message to General Wren. "We can't kill what isn't alive. Stop pushing. Listen, or we all vanish." This time, Wren replied, "Meet me." The meeting took place in the ruins of Cavix Theta, where Grady had been executed. Braxton arrived with 5 of his lieutenants. Wren came alone. No weapons were drawn. Just two soldiers standing amidst the ashes of a war gone too far. Braxton spoke first. Grady died for peace. You've turned him into a symbol of silence. Ren didn't flinch. Died with his eyes open. Maybe we should too. Stood in silence for a long time. No cameras, no broadcasts. For the first time since the purge began, an order was given not to fire. Earth's fleets paused not in surrender, but in realization. The Dominion had won the war, but something else was winning the silence. Perhaps survival wasn't about screaming louder, but learning to listen. The pause wasn't peace. Earth's fleets remained armed. Troops stayed deployed. Leviathan class. Warships loomed like daggers in the void. Yet for the first time in months, the Dominion wasn't expanding. It was waiting. Back aboard Citadel Prime, something cracked within General Ren. Not his pride, his certainty. After burning half a galaxy, he stood in the ruins of Kavix Theta, haunted by the man whose death echoed louder than all their orbital strikes combined. Grady had died in chains, but his voice had been free. Now Earth was unchained, yet his words still shackled them. In the shadowed halls of Citadel Prime, Redline's predictive modules began to fail. The once ruthless AI now refused to render forecasts beyond 90 days, its calculations erratic. For the first time, Redline recommended survival strategies. The word survival had never appeared in its protocols before. In response, Earth activated Project Equor, a clandestine initiative pulling together a Council scientists Ashbourne, defectors, rogue scholars, and even an alien Lorati code singer named Elverth. They weren't warriors, they were true. And what they uncovered terrified even Redline, buried deep in the earliest. Council charters was a doctrine, the containment clause. It didn't address war or rebellion, but warned against narrative curiosity. Civilizations were to be kept in cultural stasis, not for control, but suppression. Long before humanity ever reached the stars, the Council had discovered monolithic structures near what would one day be called Sector Null. These weren't ruins. They were warnings. Thousands of identical constructs scattered across dead worlds. No language, no carvings, just three features: a hollow eye, an outstretched hand, and an inverted spiral, all buried beneath planetary crusts, as if the planets themselves had tried to forget. The structures didn't decay. They self-preserved. The Council had panicked. The containment clause was enacted. No colonization beyond the veil, no research, no awakening. Over centuries, fear gave way to bureaucracy, and knowledge faded. But Earth hadn't just ignored the closet, had screamed into the void. Listener had stirred. Reports flooded in. Species thought extinct reappeared, roused by gravitational anomalies and drawn toward the same ancient symbols at Luna Blackport. The Judicator, silent since its return, began emitting strange vibrations. Its hull pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Scientists scrambled to investigate, testing for AI tampering, EMP interference, or contamination. Then they noticed the markings inside its core walls. Worlds we swore to protect. Stop the swing. Lay down the hammer. Ren stared at the file. 4 hours, the weight of it pressed against him like the silence of the veil itself. This wasn't a strategy or a tactic. It was an admissional line drawn not by a soldier, but by a man who believed Earth could still choose what it became. He summoned Braxton Hale to Citadel Prime. No intermediaries. No armed escorts. Just two men standing at the edge of extinction. Braxton entered cautiously, his Ashbourne lieutenants waiting outside the chamber. You activated it, didn't you? Braxton's voice was heavy with both hope and dread. Ren didn't answer. He simply gestured toward the holographic display where Grady's last directive hovered in sharp relief. This is what he wanted, Ren said quietly. A failsafe for when we went too far. But we didn't just go too far, Braxton. We tore the stars apart, and now the stars are tearing back. Braxton stepped closer, scanning the file, his breath catching as he read the final line. The hammer is heavy. Let someone else carry it. Ren turned to Braxton, his voice uncharacteristically soft. He saw this coming, didn't he? Even back then. Braxton nodded. Grady knew we were a species of fire, Marcus. He hoped we'd burn brightly, but feared we'd burn everything. For the first time, Wren looked uncertain, his hands gripping the edges of the console. Do you think it's too late to stop? Braxton didn't hesitate. Not if we listen. The next move was unprecedented. Wren, the architect of Earth's domination, ordered a full halt to all Dominion operations. No orbital strikes, no fleet movements, no purges. The Leviathan-class warships, humanity's greatest technological achievement, were recalled to Earth. The galaxy, fractured and bleeding, held its breath. Earth broadcasted a single, unencrypted message to every surviving species, rogue faction, and hidden colony. We're putting down the hammer. But the silence is still coming. If you want to survive, we need to face it together. The response was far from unanimous. Many alien civilizations, scarred by Earth's brutality, refused to trust the offer. Some saw it as a trap, others as weakness. But a few, desperate and clinging to hope, answered the call. The Ashborn acted as intermediaries, bridging gaps that war had made impossible. Braxton himself led delegations to factions that had once cursed Earth's name, convincing them that humanity's survival was now intertwined with their own. On the surface of Luna, the Judicator was dismantled, its mysterious markings studied by Joint Terran and alien scientists. The ship's vibrations, once incomprehensible, began to align with ancient council records. The symbols weren't random, they were coordinates. The listener wasn't just watching, it was waiting. Redline Earth's semi-sentient AI provided the final revelation. After countless recalibrations and near collapse, it decoded a fragment of the listener's signal. The message was short, almost mocking in its simplicity. You make noise, we make endings. Wren convened a final war council not to plan destruction, but preparation. The Leviathan fleet, initially built for annihilation, would now carry the remnants of every allied species toward the coordinates. It wasn't a mission of defiance anymore. It was one of understanding. As the fleets assembled, Wren stood alone on the observation deck of Citadel Prime, staring into the void. He carried Grady's uniform with him, its fabric worn, but still intact, a relic of a man who believed peace was possible. Even in the face of impossible odds, he whispered the words he hadn't spoken since the campaign began. You can't outburn hatred. You can only outlive it. For the first time, he believed it might be true. No orders were issued, no fleets deployed, no broadcasts made. Its engines of war, its factories, shipyards, and military outposts stopped humming. Across the Dominion, a single command was transmitted to all personnel. Stand down. I remained at the edge of space, its gaze unbroken, its presence a silent judgment. General Wren, who had orchestrated the Dominion's rise and destruction, stood in the heart of Citadel Prime. In front of him was a small, unassuming console, held the only operational link to Project Atonement's final directive. Grady's encoded files had begun to ripple across the galaxy. Entire star systems, scarred by Earth's vengeance, now saw a different kind of light, the unfiltered truth. Earth hadn't just killed, it had tried to erase. And now, through Grady's vision, it was undoing its own erasure. Wren's finger hovered over the console's activation key. This wasn't just an upload. It was a beacon. A call to every species Earth had wronged. A signal that humanity was laying down its hammer, not in surrender, but in acknowledgement. He pressed it. Across the galaxy, Terran ships powered down. Stations blinked into low-energy states. Troops returned to their barracks, leaving behind worlds still smoldering with the aftermath of Earth's wrath. But alongside the devastation came the upload. Libraries reappeared as holographic archives. Lost histories projected themselves into empty skies. Songs once silenced hummed through broken cities. The galaxy saw itself again. In pieces, but not erased. The eye moved for the first time. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to retreat. Stars bent again, reshaping into a tunnel of unlight. But before it vanished, The question returned, not as a voice or presence, but as a knowing, a whisper inside every mind. Will you start again? Ren turned from the console, his shoulders heavy, his face lined with exhaustion. Braxton Hale stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. It's not enough, Braxton said softly. No, Ren agreed. But it's the only start we have. The eye disappeared, leaving behind a galaxy that felt both heavier and lighter. The silence it left wasn't oppressive, it was introspective, like a breath held before deciding whether to exhale. Back on Earth, the flames of the Unity Archive burned out. Soldiers stood in the ashes, unsure of what came next. For the first time in decades, there was no enemy, no target, no order. The Dominion had paused. Whether it could truly stop was still uncertain. In the weeks that followed, a fragile coalition began to form. Led by the Ashborn, it was not a government or an empire, but a gathering of survivors, scholars, and builders. Their goal was simple: rebuild, not as it was, but as it could have been. Earth wasn't invited to lead. It wasn't trusted to follow. It was simply asked to listen. General Wren stepped down from his command. Retreating to a quiet outpost on Mars, Braxton Hale took his place, not as a conqueror, but as a steward, and as humanity began to rebuild. Its people carried with them a memory etched into every archive, every monument, and every story. The end was not a declaration, but a sigh. Humanity, after decades of fire and fury, finally stood still, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as witnesses to the cost of their choices. The galaxy, too, began to breathe differently. In the absence of Earth's dominance, surviving species emerged cautiously from the shadows. Some approached humanity not with anger, but with questions. How does a species rebuild itself after standing on the edge of erasure? Could they ever truly reconcile with a galaxy they had scarred so deeply? For Earth, the answer wasn't in rebuilding monuments or rewriting laws. It was in quiet acknowledgement. Across the Dominion's remnants, small acts of reparation began to take shape. Humans planted seeds in the ruins of alien worlds. They rebuilt without claiming ownership, leaving behind only unmarked contributions. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. The silence left by the eye was transformative. It wasn't a void. It was a canvas, and on it, humanity began. Painting something new? Leaders like Braxton Hale worked to foster a fragile coalition of species scarred by war, united not by treaties, but by a shared commitment to remembering the past. General Wren, once the architect of Earth's wrath, vanished from public view. His name was whispered in tones of both reverence and regret. And Thomas Grady, the man whose death had set the galaxy ablaze, became more than a memory. He became a reminder, a symbol of what humanity could be at its best, and a caution against what it might become at its worst. The garden where he had died flourished, untended but thriving. It grew wild and free, a living testament to the resilience of life. Once a year, the galaxy paused in shared silence. No speeches, no ceremonies, just a moment of reflection. It wasn't about mourning, it was about remembering. For in remembering, they honored not just the past, but the hope that history would guide them toward something better. The eye had left, but its question lingered. Are you done yet? As for humanity and the galaxy, the answer wasn't final. It wasn't yes or no. It was a promise to keep asking the question, to keep striving for more, to keep listening to the stars, to each other, and to the silence that had taught them everything.